Regional positions in Venezuela are closing their campaigns ahead of the polls of next Sunday, May 25th. Panamanian workers will hold a caravan to condemn the aggressions toward the sectors supporting the indefinite strike in defense of sovereignty. And the International Committee of the Red Cross warned that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is on the verge of total collapse due to Israel's aid blockade. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Thursday, candidates for legislative and regional positions in Venezuela are closing their campaigns ahead of the polls of next Sunday, May 25th. After several weeks of traveling all over the country, the candidates for deputies to the National Assembly, governorships and legislative councils held the closing acts of their campaign, calling on the support of voters. There are 6,500 candidates running for Sunday's polls, most of them women and young people. They represent 54 political organizations ranging from the ruling coalition, the Great Patriotic Poll, to candidates from opposition parties. In this context, on a special interview for teleSUR, the Venezuelan candidate for the governorship of the Táchira state, Freddy Bernal, detailed that his work will focus on improving the agricultural viability of the state in the coming years.
Let's make an effort in agricultural viability because we produce 40% of vegetables and legumes. Moreover, this is a state, and I sometimes say, not a state to tell it rains or not, thus when it rains heavily. Then I have many problems of agricultural viability because streams and rivers grow, and farmers need an agricultural viability to be able to get the products out.
The government of Venezuela activated the Obraton throughout the national territory with the objective of carrying out 130 works in 130 days and responding to the needs of the communities. The initiative is part of the policy of priority investment in strategic projects in social areas such as the strengthening of health units with medical equipment and medicines. It also seeks the remodeling of educational centers and cultural spaces, the integral rehabilitation of the country's main road arteries, among other projects of interest. In this context, the President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, toured the recovered and rehabilitated areas of the Eastern Maternal and Children's Hospital, Dr. Joel Valencia Parparcén, and reaffirmed the commitment with the warranty of the right to health. In Peru, an exclusive ceremonial sanctuary for the elite is found in Caral, the oldest civilization in the Americas that once bloomed in north of modern Lima. It is a fire altar with an antiquity of about 4,000 years, built on the west side of a pyramidal public upper building. Archaeologists stated private ceremonies had been held there, where members of the elite used to burn offerings such as beads, fragments of quartz, fish, and agricultural products. The altar was found by the team of investigators of the archaeological zone Caral that leads the Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady in the sector called Era de Pando. Colombia celebrated Afro-Colombian Day with various cultural activities in several cities to pay tribute to the African heritage in the country. As part of the celebrations in Bogotá, libraries and cultural spaces hosted talks, theater, exhibitions and concerts by Afro-Colombian groups. In Cali, the mayor's office extended its invitation to citizens to participate in an agenda that promotes Afro-descendant rights and heritage, while Barranquilla was the scene of the Negro Somos discussion at the Carnival Museum reflecting on cultural identity. And in Cartagena de Indias, the Afro-Caribe Fest 2025 was held with a focus on music, dance and ancestral knowledge. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Panamanian indefinite strike of the unions intensifies in different regions nationwide in rejection of Law 462 of the Social Security Fund amid complaints of raids on union headquarters and growing repression against demonstrators. The leadership of workers denounced that police officers with their faces covered and rifles in hand stormed their headquarters in San Miguelito in Panama City. Likewise, on track representatives described the action as a government to intimidate their clients. They further indicated that the order seeks to capture information related to the investigation of another leader of the union. Moreover, workers claimed that the cancellation of the accounts of their cooperative was a persecution by the executive and had no legal basis, just aimed at stopping protest and the indefinite strike. Young workers will hold a caravan to condemn the aggressions toward the sector supporting the indefinite strike in defense of sovereignty. The caravan will set off from Saita village in the outskirts of Panama City on Friday, May 23rd. Marchers will be rejecting the deal signed by the Molino administration and Washington under the pretext of guaranteeing the security of the Panama Canal. In this context, diverse social organizations will intensify mobilizations in defense of democracy. They indicated that the demonstration is part of the plan of actions to stand against the political persecution of unions, such as the construction Sontrucks union, the arrest of leaders, the closing of a cooperative, and the search of their properties. Hundreds of residents and miners marched on Wednesday in Trujillo to demand greater security in one of Peru's most crime-ridden cities. The peaceful protest took place 16 days after the murder of 13 workers at the gold mine in Patas. Some miners marched with white helmets as a and carried signs reading "No more death, no to delinquency, no to extortion." 13 workers linked to the Poderosa mine, one of the big mining companies in Peru, were found dead on May 4th in a gold mine shaft. Patas was declared in a state of emergency since February 2024 due to the escalation of violence linked to gold mining. In Argentina, teachers organized in the National Historical Federation of University Teachers, CONADU, set for this week a 48-hour national strike to demand the reopening of bargaining, negotiations and a salary increase. Meanwhile, the students will march on Thursday. This measure motivated the non-teaching staff to make the same measure, but for 24 hours for this Friday. The students of the University of Buenos Aires are preparing for a mobilization of support that will take place this Thursday from House A Square to the National Secretariat of Education. The classrooms where the country's future professionals are trained mobilized with a firm decision to continue with the measures of struggle that had already begun last year against the first budget cuts. In Argentina, police officers repressed with excessive force the march held every Wednesday by hundreds of retirees in front of the Congress, leaving almost 100 injured and 4 arrested. The security forces launched tear gas and hit the demonstrators with tonfas at different times in the afternoon, while protesters were cordoning off the streets by a picket line. In this context, the police applied the anti-riot protocol with an excessive operation that hampered the peaceful rally to develop. In Mexico, friends and militants of the Morena party paid tribute to the government cabinet collaborators assassinated in an attack. On Tuesday morning, May 20th, Jimena Guzman, who was the private secretary of Mexico City's Mayor Clara Brugada, and advisor Jose Muñoz were shot dead on one of the city's crowded avenues. Witnesses saw how the shooter aimed his gun at the windshield of the vehicle in which they were traveling, and then he fled on a motorbike. This crime has dispelled the idea that Mexico City was a safe place, generating terror and hopelessness among citizens. The first investigations revealed that Guzman, 42, was in the driver's seat. Besides being the private secretary, she was also a close colleague of Brugada's from her work in Iztapalapa. Also in Mexico, a huge blast consumed the facilities of a fuel distribution company in the Mexican state of Nuevo León. Authorities reported that the fire started at 2 p.m. local time on Wednesday, raising some 13 containers with more than 10,000 liters of capacity belonging to the company Marvic, which distributes gasoline and diesel nationwide. In this context, 11 people had been evacuated from the site and 1 injured person had been taken to a hospital. As of the latest update, firefighting operations remain underway, and officials have not confirmed the full extent of the damage or the cause of the fire. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, especially live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. Palestinian human rights organizations denounced the increasing physical and psychological abuses against Palestinian hostages by the Israeli regime. The nation's Prisoners Club and the Addamer Prisoners Support and Human Rights Association condemned violations committed in Tel Aviv penitentiaries and described the conditions in Israeli as highly dangerous. The organization denounced the use of truncheons, machetes and police dogs to torture Palestinian hostages. More than 10,000 Palestinians are still held hostage in Israeli prisons, among them about 500 minors and dozens of women. The International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, warned the humanitarian situation in Gaza is on the verge of total collapse due to Israel's aid blockade. ICRC spokesperson Hisham Muhanna denounced on Wednesday the worsening crisis in the Palestinian enclave. In this regard, Muhanna stressed that the resumption and escalation of Israeli military operations and the ban on the entry of aid have exacerbated the situation in the Strip. Furthermore, the ICRC official condemned as unacceptable the politicization of humanitarian aid and its use as a form of political and military pressure. In Palestine, the Israeli occupation forces have continued their aggression in the Gaza Strip, where in a recent series of new deadly attacks, at least 93 people were killed. The offensive targeted the Al-Auda hospital in the north of the Palestinian territory, with tanks firing on buildings of the health center, including the specialized surgery department. In addition, earlier on Thursday, rescue teams recovered 13 bodies from under the rubble of two houses bombed by Israeli in Habalia al-Balad in the north of the Palestinian enclave. The number of Palestinians killed by the Zionist regime in Gaza since the onslaught of its offensive in October 2023 has risen to 53,655, while the number of wounded stands at 121,950. Israeli occupation forces mounted Thursday incursions into the occupied West Bank and the whole Gaza Strip, so they not only dropped bombings but also demolished villages, abducted and killed Palestinian civilians. The Israeli troops raided early Thursday back at Al-Hatab village near Kalkilia city in the West Bank. There, they evicted families from their homes. They even detonated a 120 square meter residence of the Abdul Ghani family. In addition, the Palestinian Prisoner Society denounced the abduction of 25 Palestinians, including former inmates and a woman. Likewise, occupation forces stormed today the Al-Halal Zone refuge camp in northern Ramallah and wounded 7 people, including a senior man. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, called for immediate action against the worsening humanitarian crisis in Yemen, stating that they are on the brink of catastrophe. The entity detailed that the Yemeni people are facing what could be their most difficult year, and in their opinion, conflicts, economic collapse and climatic impacts are increasing the humanitarian needs in the territory. They also called on the international community to carry out operations in the country to help prevent a possible humanitarian catastrophe, ensuring that the needs and access to essential services of the population are met, in addition to providing economic opportunities and means of livelihood. In Spain, teachers take to the streets of Madrid to denounce the precarious situation of public education. Under the slogan, "Let's save public education," hundreds of people demand funding for the country's public education. Teachers from kindergarten, secondary, special education and vocational training participated in the mobilization day. All the educational sectors agree that the lack of funding from the government is damaging the teaching and working conditions. In the United States, 2 Israeli embassy staff members were shot and killed on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. The deadly shooting occurred at about 9 p.m. local time near the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., according to authorities. The Israeli Foreign Minister named the two victims as Jaron Lishinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgrim. Pamela Smith, chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, stated that authorities had arrested a single suspect in the shooting, identified as Elias Rodriguez, a 30-year-old from Chicago, Illinois. Prior to the shooting, the suspect had been observed pacing back and forth outside the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, pulled out a gun, and opened fire, wounding both of the deceased.
Preliminary investigation indicates that both victims were exiting an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum located in the 500 block of 3rd Street Northwest when the shooting occurred. We believe the shooting was committed by a single suspect who is now in custody. Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our deceased.
In Australia, floods caused by heavy rainstorm in the state of New South Wales have left at least 3 people dead and 1 missing. The body of a 60-year-old woman who has been found in flood waters on the NSW mid-north coast, bringing the death toll to 3, with authorities still holding grave fears for another person who is still missing. Earlier, emergency crews found the body of a man in his 30s. Another man, 63-year-old, was found near the town of Tare, one of the areas hardest hit by the rainstorm. The regional commander of the emergency services, Michael Wassing, informed that the victim had asked for help. However, the rescue teams could not arrive in time. Authorities on Thursday called on the state's residents to remain prepared for an evacuation.
We've got an incredibly volatile situation. I said a few days ago that this will break some records, and these aren't the records that you want to break, but we've seen more rain and more flooding in the mid and to north coast area than we've ever seen before. We've seen an impact that's affecting the tens of thousands of people.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.